This is Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. If you have a school teacher in the family, you've probably heard them say it.
There are so many things I wish parents knew.
Today on our show, they get their wish. Where do parents drop the ball in helping their child learn? Or where could they simply be more helpful? How can every parent help their child succeed at school and handle really tough problems like truancy? Teachers are pretty sure they know. So our show is filled with great teachers and leaders in student success. Teachers from Garrettson Elementary in Corona share their thoughts, and the Director of Leadership, Innovation, and Outreach shares how parents can optimize their child's education, no matter what age. But first, we meet Megan Silva, who has spent over 2 decades in education as a teacher, administrator, and now the simultaneous principal of 2 elementary schools in San Bernardino, Kendall and Harmon Elementary. Megan, welcome to Education Insight.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about the kids at your school and your experience with them and family engagement and success. So how important is it for parents to be involved with assignments and homework that their children bring home?
I think it's very important for the parents to be involved in any aspects of their child's education. With the assignments and the homework, I know sometimes, especially now with things changing, it can be very difficult to understand how to approach or how to support your child with it. But I think that they need to be on the same page with the teacher. And if there are concerns, like let's say the student is not understanding the assignments or the homework that they're bringing home, to be able to communicate that with the teacher so they can work together as a team to support the best interests of that child. So I think that they definitely need to be in touch with what their students are bringing home, what they're working on in class, and just having that two-way communication with their teacher, because it definitely takes a team to work together to ensure the overall academic success for a student. Okay. So I think it's very important.
Megan, there's a topic that is as old as the hills. When I was young, my dad and my mom used to complain about the new math and trying to help Lacey with her homework when you didn't understand it. And it's been the topic of situation comedies on television. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for a parent who is struggling to understand the material that their children are learning and they feel they can't help with the assignments?
Ask questions, reach out to the teacher and reach out to the school site. Lots of our school sites, a lot of my colleagues, we offer workshops. We offer opportunities to help empower our parents so they know the best ways to support them. And, and just encouraging them to sit down and have the students kind of show them what they're working on in class. I think the best thing, and I always tell my teachers this, but I also tell my parents this too, even if you're showing them your way of doing it, at least you're giving them an opportunity to see a different approach, especially when it comes to math, because we know that there's more than one approach to get the answer, right?
Yep.
And I encourage that because I don't want parents to shy away just because it's not being done the same way that, they did it in school. And I think the best way to get involved is to ask questions, to seek guidance, and to reach out to the teachers and just build that partnership. And that sometimes can be a little scary, especially if, the parent or somebody in their family didn't have a very good school experience. That can be very intimidating to reach out. So I do encourage our parents, just take that courageous step and reach out to the teachers and say, okay, what can I do to support? I really want to help my child succeed in your class, and what is the best way I can support them at home?
Yeah.
And I think just by asking that question opens up that door of opportunity to work together collaboratively.
Yeah. Be brave.
Be brave.
Yeah.
And it does. I mean, it takes that first step. And even myself, and I've gone pretty far in my education, but I've sometimes, with that chemistry that my daughter is doing and AP European history, sometimes I have to ask those brave questions as well.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest mistake that parents unknowingly make when they're trying to help their child succeed in school?
I think sometimes the biggest mistake is, to me, is not reaching out, is not saying anything, not being the advocate for your child. I think we are definitely the advocates for our own children, and I think when you don't say anything, or you don't speak up, and there's a way to do it, right? There's a professional way, there's a respectful way to do it, of course, and we're all here to help our children succeed. And I think when we don't say anything, or we just not let it go, but if we just don't say anything, I think that is one of the biggest mistakes.
Gotcha.
Because you have to support your children, and if you feel that there's something not right or something you just don't understand, please speak up. Definitely.
Yeah. So a parent is listening right now, Megan, and they want to have a better relationship with their child's teacher. How do they begin the process of working as a team to help that child?
That's a tough one. It depends on what the situation, because every situation is a little bit different. I think if they just kind of reach out and make that connection with the teacher and just say, I really would like this to be a positive year for my child. What can I do to support this process this year? Can I come in and get involved? How can I get involved in my child? Because we really encourage volunteering, and it can be on any level for our parents. And I know some parents can't come into the classroom, but sometimes they can just, provide some support at home too. But I think just kind of reaching out and just, letting the teacher know that, hey, I'm here. I really want us to work together as a team. But I also encourage our teachers to do that as well, not just putting it on the parents to make that first step, but also, hoping that the teachers extend that olive branch as well. And that is a courageous first step, but I think it really does help, because we want to build those close relationships. We want the teachers to build it with the students, but we also want them to extend it to the families too, because ultimately it takes the entire team to support that child.
Yeah. If you just joined us, you're listening to Education Insight. Our guest by telephone is Megan Silva. She's the principal of Kendall-Harmon Elementary Schools in the north side of San Bernardino. And we're talking about family engagement. Megan, have you seen any practice by parents, whether it's intentional or not, that actually hindered their child's success?
One thing I've seen in past experiences, but also especially last year with distance learning, and I know, and our parents, I can't stress enough how important of a role that they played last year. And I know it was very difficult these past 15 months that, with COVID and everything. And our parents were our co-teachers, and they were there helping out and helping our students and our teachers. But the one thing that can hinder is when we start doing the work for our students. And when I say we, I'm one of those too. I'm a parent as well, and we think that we're helping them along the way. But if we're not teaching them how to be self-sufficient and be able to, one, we have to teach them how to persevere through. Not everything is going to come to us easy. And our kiddos are growing up in an age where everything it's like that instant gratification, right? And things are done for them instantly. And sometimes it's not, going to that next level, it's not as easy as we expect it to be. And so sometimes we have to problem solve. We have to, sometimes we have to fail several times before we can figure out, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do it so I can be successful. And I think sometimes when we soften it too much for our students and we're doing the work for them, they're not realizing how they can make mistakes in order to learn from those mistakes to be able to be successful. And so I do see that as a hindrance, and it's not intentional. It's because we care about our children. We don't want to see them fail. We want them to succeed. I as a parent, I see that in myself as well. But I think that's something that can hinder a child's success more than help it in the long run.
If you could offer 2 or 3 critical tips for parents or guardians of young students this coming year, what would you want to share?
Be honest and open with the communication with the teachers, and that's for the parents, but also for the students as well. Set some goals that are not too lofty, but, that are somewhat rigorous and that they can attain, and work together to try and reach those goals. I think if we all set goals for ourselves and we see the success along the way, it empowers us to keep persevering and keep moving forward. And so I think definitely the goal setting, following up, communicating, having that two-way communication with the teacher and any support staff that's working with that child. Because we also, on the special ed side, sometimes you have multiple teachers or multiple instructional staff that are working with your child. Just having that open, honest communication, that's definitely critical. And, when there's opportunities to get involved at the school, take advantage of those opportunities, even if it's a parent meeting or a coffee with the principal or any other opportunities, PTA meeting, whatever there is.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. If you have some time off from work and you're able to go and see what's happening at the school site, I strongly encourage our parents to take advantage of those opportunities, even if it's just one meeting. At least that's one step closer to see what's going on in your child's school.
So many of our parents and guardians are now going back to work as well. And if they don't have the time or the ability to do it all, getting super involved, what are the absolute must items that they need to do to support that child's success in school? Before you answer that, we need to take a quick break. We're speaking with Megan Silva, principal at San Bernardino's Kendall-Harmon Elementary Schools. And we're asking what educators wish parents knew to make their child's education experience a better one. More in a moment. I'm Lacey Kendall, and this is Education Insight. Over the past year and a half, millions of parents have learned just how hard it is to be a teacher as they've overseen their children's at-home and online learning. The good news is, as a result, parents are more engaged with their child's education than before the pandemic. But most parents still have some questions they need answered, and teachers and administrators have a number of things they wish parents knew. This week, we're digging deep to find those answers. Megan Silva is the principal of 2 San Bernardino schools, and she joins us by phone. Before the break, I asked, what are the absolute must items that they need to do to support that child's success in school?
Carving out some time where if you have a little bit of time, and I know a lot of us don't have a lot of free time, but carving out some time where they're at least maybe working with them on a skill that they need support in, or maybe taking some time to just read a book with them, or sitting down and talking about their day and how it was going, and what made their day great, or what about their day wasn't that great, and how can we make it better tomorrow. Just taking some time to work with them for a little bit and just showing, okay, what is happening to you during the day is very important to me, even though I'm really busy with what I'm doing, from my 8 to 7 or whatever their shift is, still taking that time out and making sure that their child is still that number one priority to them. And I think that our students will really appreciate that. And I think in establishing that trust at a very young age, hopefully will continue throughout their secondary and post-secondary years as well.
Yeah.
Because even in high school, they still need their parents. They may not think they do, but they still need their parents and their support.
Mm-hmm. Megan, what would the optimal relationship between a parent and a teacher look like? Could you describe that for us?
Yes, I think where that honest communication happens, and it may not be every single day, but it might be when things are going really well for the student, but then also when things might be challenging. And just that open and honest communication between the parent and the teacher, and where if they come across an obstacle, they work together as a team to figure out solutions to support that child to get over that obstacle. And I've seen this happen where that honest and two-way communication is critical. It's not just falling on, okay, the teacher needs to report this all to me all the time. It's maybe the parent stepping up and saying, okay, I need to, schedule an appointment to meet with so-and-so, or I need to talk to them, at dismissal, and just taking that initiative. But it really needs to be a two-way street. And I think that transparency and that open, honest communication, that is essential. And it needs to start from day one, not when a problem occurs, but when things are going great too.
Mm-hmm. We've been speaking with Megan Silva. She is the principal at Kendall-Harmon Elementary Schools in San Bernardino, talking about family engagement. Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate all the great information.
Thank you very much, Lacey. I appreciate being on your show, and I hope it helps encourage our parents to get out there and support their scholars.
Coming up on Education Insight, elementary school teachers share what they really wish parents knew about their child's education. But first, we meet Renae Ramsey. She's spent decades as a school teacher and administrator and has worked with Sacramento legislators to strengthen local advocacy that puts students first. Nowadays, as the coordinator for leadership, innovation, and outreach, she's the expert in family engagement at Riverside County's Office of Education. Renae, thanks for taking our call.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
So first of all, for those that may not understand it, could you explain what family engagement means in reference to education and why it's so important to students?
All right. Well, first of all, the very basic definition of family engagement is just a process used to build genuine relationships with families to support them overall, their well-being, their children's health, their development. And it varies for every single family. It's not the same for every single family. So then we look at family engagement and how it has a positive impact on many of the student experiences. Mm-hmm. And we notice that we focus on elementary, of course, but we can't forget that there's a huge component to family engagement in secondary schools.
Yeah.
So then we see kind of that dip, right? As students get older, parents say, oh, we don't really need to, be as involved. But actually, we see that actually parents need to be much more involved, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
But there's a huge decrease, but it's not something to ignore. It's something that, we're trying to promote, that family engagement actually gets more important as students get older.
Could you tell us about the work your team does at the Riverside County Office of Education?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Well, our unit is actually called Leadership, Innovation, and Outreach, which is a very unique name. Nobody really seems to know what we do right from the name of our unit.
Yeah.
But for leadership, our goals are to grow the capacity of leaders at all levels. We hope to create thriving school communities, and we know that there's not one person that has the knowledge of everything, but we know that each person that we work with, that we meet, they all have leadership capabilities, and that is our goal, is to grow that within every single person we meet, whether it's parents, whether it's family engagement leaders, whether it's teachers, whether it's administrators, it doesn't matter who it is. So that's kind of our leadership component. Then we have the area of innovation, where we build networks to support schools and to kind of help them learn how to provide a more flexible and customized learning experience. Because now we have the virtual format, we have a hybrid format, we even have a traditional method of schooling. So that's kind of where innovation goes.
Okay.
And then when we look on the outreach portion of our unit, we strive to supplement and enhance kind of district efforts. So we want to increase student and adult engagement. So we support 23 different districts from the county office. and they make all of their own choices. They lead their districts how they choose to. So as the county, we kind of will help when they ask for help, or we'll offer different trainings, and they might say, oh, wow, we're really focusing on that. Can you help support us in that? Because not every district can focus on everything all at the same time. So we're here to support and supplement what the districts are already doing. And then, of course, we have to align all of our efforts with all of like the current initiatives that are happening. So right now we're focusing on mental health. We're focusing on financial literacy by fifth grade, which is making sure students are reading by fifth grade and understanding reading, writing, and all of those things that they need for their entire life. And then our equity and inclusive practices. So we try to mold all of our work to think about what is happening currently today that is going to help support students and adults for hopefully the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So that's a snapshot of what our work is.
It sounds like family engagement is at the root of a lot of important projects that you have going on there in your office.
Yes.
So explain to us, what is the relationship between parent involvement and student success?
I'm going to actually share a quote by Henderson Matt from 2007, and it kind of captures that perfect relationship. It says, many years of research show that involving families and the community contributes to children's academic and social success. The evidence is consistent, positive, and convincing. Families have a major influence on their children's achievement. When schools, families, and community groups work together to support learning, children tend to do better in school. They stay longer in school, and they like school more. So that quote, just right there, this has been valid forever, since 100 years ago to today. The more families are involved, the more successful children are. They feel like they have a community surrounding them, whether it's their family, their teachers, businesses around. They feel that support. And so another piece of the relationship between parents and student success is understanding that everyone has a different perception of what family engagement is supposed to mean. So as we look at it, we each have our own personal belief systems. We've all been raised very unique ways by our parents or, our community around us. And how we were raised plays a powerful role in what you think family engagement should be or what the outcomes should be. And so no one family has the same personal beliefs or customs or what they think education should be for their child or for their experience, working with a school.
If you just joined us, you're listening to Education Insight. Our guest today is Renae Ramsey. She's the coordinator for leadership, innovation, and outreach for the Riverside County Office of Education. She happens to be the family engagement specialist over there, and that's what we're talking about here today. Renae, what are your biggest concerns for our Inland Empire students and their families right now and even long term?
Yeah, that's a complex question. This is a topic that is coming up all over the place. We see it here at work. We see it at the county office. We see it at the districts. We see it on social media, on the parent posts that are putting out there. And everybody is seeing that there's a lot of polarization happening right now. There's a lot of perceptions and assumptions. And a lot of people out there are feeling like there's a lack of choice when it comes to their child's education. So those are probably the biggest concerns and the biggest hot topics is everybody wants their child to be successful. And people aren't feeling that success right now with everything that's happening with COVID and this pandemic and what's happening in politics. There's a lot of polarization. People are taking this side or that side. And it is causing a lot of conflict. And so that's probably the biggest concern that's coming up that we're working on. How do we have these discussions in a safe environment and allowing people to use their voice and to express what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what they're looking for and what they're hearing and perceiving. And that right there, that word perceiving, there's a lot of information that is out there and people hear it, they see it, and they just believe it. And sometimes, or I can't even say sometimes, oftentimes, they're not looking to see, is it true? Is there data behind it? Is it a fact? Or is it somebody just saying their opinion or what they're thinking? And so that is a huge, huge concern. Just being, personally as a mom of, 3 teenagers, I, go to sports fields and I hear families on the sidelines say things and I'm like, whoa, 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 that's not true. And they're like, well, yeah, it is. I saw it on Facebook. And I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, so if you go to the California Department of Ed website, there's facts, there's the laws, the rules, the things that everybody has to abide by. And so there's a lot of assumptions out there and perceptions, and it's nobody's fault, or there's nobody really to blame. It's more about fact checking, and if you listen to something, look for yourself and not believe everything we see and we hear. And we teach our kids that too when they're on their gaming devices. Don't believe everybody you're seeing or hearing, or when you're watching a TV show at night, that drama, it's a drama. It's not real life. So we're telling kids not to believe everything they hear and see, but even us as adults, we have to look at that too. And so all of these things happening is a big concern because it's causing polarization, and it's not allowing people to come together in unity and care for each other, as humans.
This is Education Insight. We're speaking with Family Engagement Specialist for Riverside County's Office of Education. That would be Renae Ramsey. We are talking today about things that educators wish parents understood better. But here's a few questions I got here that parents are dying to know. I wish I knew the answer to a couple of these about 10 years ago. How can parents help to stop their child's attendance issues? How can they catch it early?
The big thing there is that I talked about before is communicating with your school. Every single school has supports around absences and what's coming behind it. And so a lot of times people will call home, hey, I want to clear this absence, and people don't answer the phone, or, they want to cover up something that's happening. And communicating with your school what's going on is going to get you all the support that you need. And just being vulnerable and transparent, that right there, catching it early is going to be a big thing until waiting until it's a problem, right? It's hard to reverse something once it's a problem. So communicate with the school and ask, what do you have for my child that can help support them? I'm having a problem with this, and I want the school's help. When a school hears that you want their help, they are so relieved and willing to help. So it's all about communication.
Okay. So if a parent is noticing any rapid change in behavior in their child, and it's starting to affect academics, they should lean in, communicate better, and then communicate with the school.
Exactly. Immediately. Don't wait to see if it passes.
Okay.
Don't wait to see if it passes, because sometimes when you wait, it can feel like it's too late, and it's a lot harder to kind of rewind what's going on. So if you notice something, say something right away, because everybody is here to support kids. And if parents reach out, that is going to be the number one goal, is to help support when a parent is reaching out.
Okay. Renae, has parent engagement changed over the past 18 months amid a pandemic?
Well, absolutely. It changed a lot. So as we know, schools have had to depend on the families to reach the students. Nobody's experienced this before, to be sent home. In this entire generation, we haven't experienced this. And I think this is my 23rd year. And of course, I haven't seen something like this. Mm-hmm. But with everybody being sent home in such a sudden time, schools had to figure out, how do we now reach the kids? We can't bring them to school and teach them. Can we get them the devices they need? Can we get them the curriculum they need? Can we even get to a working phone call? Can we get them a device? There's all these questions happening. And the thing that schools had to do was reach out directly to parents. And so right there, parents became partners. And it can't go away. And we keep saying this to schools right now is now that parents have become your partners, now it's time to keep them as partners, keep them engaged in their child's education. Thank them for all the work that they've done the last 18 months and say, let's continue to work together. Let's help accelerate your child's learning if you feel like your child has missed learning. Let's continue to customize your child's education if they happen to be very successful during this time of virtual learning. So now that schools know how to communicate with schools, and even if we know they need to make tweaks, we know they need to make adjustments, but now that it has started, it can't stop. Parents and schools need to continue their partnerships 100%.
Perhaps that communication that helped parents keep their students up to par might help them progress more rapidly now that they're getting the in-school engagement and they're getting a higher level of engagement with that teacher.
Oh, absolutely. And now there's more choice. People have seen the different options there are, and that, you know, if your child was successful being in school physically, you want to continue that. But there are a lot of children out there that were very successful virtually, and they soared and they pushed beyond the boundaries. They didn't need to be in person to learn, and they had less distractions. So there's a very different side on what success looks like for students right now. But now that we've seen that some kids do better in person and some kids do better virtually, how about a hybrid program and having choice? That if certain subjects your child needs to be in person because that's where they need that extra support, and then other subjects, they just can do it virtually because they can soar a lot faster. Creating that customized program, that is that new conversation of how do we give families and students choice to what works best for each child. So it's a big topic. It's a big conversation.
Yeah. Renae, this question just in from a million parents that want to know. What about screen time and cell phones? Now, a lot of parents want to know when the appropriate age might be, how they regulate time on those screens. And it seems like the lines, to me, it seems like the lines have gotten blurred with all this doing school from home in the last year. We pushed them into the media. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Think about that for a minute as we take a quick break. Teachers and administrators often say there are so many things they wish parents knew. Today, we're giving them the microphone to see how parents can help their kids do better. I'm Lacey Kendall. More education insight in a moment.
Support provided by the College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino. Art and design, communication, English, liberal studies, music, philosophy, theater, world languages and literature. The College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino. We define the future.
Welcome back to Education Insight. Today, educators are sharing tips that most parents are unaware of. Tips that could help their kids do much better in school, especially when they're having problems with depression or truancy. On the phone with us is Renae Ramsey, family engagement expert for Riverside County's Office of Education. Renae, before the break, I asked, what about screen time and cell phones? Now, a lot of parents want to know when the appropriate age might be, how they regulate time on those screens.
Well, another complicated question. As we know, kids develop and mature at very different rates. Some kids hit puberty and mature very young. Some are a lot older. So there's not really an age that it would be more appropriate to have more screen time or less screen time. It is more about the personality of the child, the maturity of the child, what they can handle, what they can't handle. the changes you see in your child? Have you prepared them on, what is appropriate on screen time? And that's probably the scariest part of screen time is families start to feel like they're losing their child because they get sucked in to screen time. The more they get, the more they want. And when you start pulling it away from them, they get angry and they get resistant. And, all these emotions are happening. And so usually it's happening at the middle school age that there's a lot of hormones happening. It's causing a lot of conflict. And we're seeing a lot of mental health issues when it comes to too much screen time.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is knowing who your child is, communicating with them frequently and often about what they are going to see, what they might see, if they see something they're not sure about, making sure as a parent monitoring everything that they're part of, asking them questions about their social media, about their screen time, who their friends are on, because a lot of the times we as parents get busy and we're like, okay, I'm going to do the dishes, go ahead and go play Xbox for a little while. And sometimes it feels like a babysitter,
Mm-hmm.
but the biggest thing to know is that it isn't going away. Technology isn't going away, but how we use it and how we talk about it is the key in this. So now, even as adults, we wouldn't go back to a rotary phone and wait for the phone at 7:00 for our, spouse or coworker to call or one of our
Right.
parents to call at 7, p.m. like we used to. Now we have instant gratification to communicate with each other, to learn things. And so for kids, if their technology is completely taken away, that's how they communicate with their friends. And so, and it's a hard thing for us to kind of like grasp, but if we think about when we were kids and we'd ride bikes and we'd run around the neighborhood and we'd go from, neighbor's house to neighbor's house and, get to go out on the weekends when, the sun's
Yep.
up and then make sure we're home when, the streetlights go off. If our parents kept us in the house and we were not allowed to see any of our friends and we knew they were out there running through the windows and we couldn't go out there, that would cause us
Oh,
back in the day to be in a severe
it'd be
depression.
terrible.
So the kids, this is how they know that they communicate or have relationships with their friends. So taking it away would be kind of the same thing. They don't understand the why. Why are you not letting me talk to my friends? Why are you not letting me? So they can't wrap their heads around the idea of the why. So when I was at a middle school, we used to talk with families about, all right, if your child gets in trouble or if they're just consumed by FaceTime or you have to remove some of that technology, say, you know what? You can go ahead and be on social media or do this and that, but we have to do it together. I have to be there with you when you're looking through your Instagram or your TikToks, and we're going to talk about, what you think is cool to look at. So it kind of becomes a experience together. You as a parent, you get to learn what your kid's interested in, what they're looking at. You get to learn who they're talking to, how they're talking to that person, or how that person is talking, whether you think
Yeah.
they should still have that relationship. So not banning kids from those things, but using each of those things as an opportunity to discuss and open up those communication lines and trying our very hardest not to judge when we see our kids' friends or hear our kids' friends or see what they post. So it's a tool that you use with your child instead of thinking of it as a super negative thing. How can you turn this technology in a positive thing? So the other piece when it comes to academics is I remember going to the library and using the card catalog and then trying to figure out where am I going to find this book that has this information I need.
Mm-hmm.
But our kids don't have that anymore. They have all knowledge at their fingertips now. Like we talked about, we have to teach them they can't believe everything they see or read, right?
Right.
But that piece of information, that technology piece, that access, that has sped up the world. And I know that none of us would go back to the library and use the card catalog when we know that we can go straight to Google.
Right.
So how do we look at this technology to use it as a positive? So when we talk about when's the appropriate time, you have to know your kid. You kind of have to watch how they engage with it. How do you engage with it? How are you the example as a parent? That's a big thing. But another huge thing that we said at the junior high and the secondary, or even when just kids got a device, period, is all devices charge in the parent's bedroom. So you put up a charging station next to your bed, and you, every night, they have to plug every single device in your room, because then you know if it disappears, you know that it's not getting used in the middle of the night, because I can tell you the stories I heard that kids would go to sleep, parents would go to sleep, and the kid would either turn on an alarm or something, wake back up, and get right back online.
Wow.
And so charging all the devices, they know the next day everything's going to be charged. But if that is something that is expected from the very beginning, that is something that becomes a practice, right? An expectation. If it's a big device like an Xbox or something like that, I would take my kids' charging cords.
Yeah.
If they don't have a cord to plug in the device to the wall, they can't do it in the middle of the night, and I'm a sleepless parent. I'm exhausted. When I fall asleep, man, I'm out. They could sneak right in and grab something. But there's ways that we can be smarter, and kids are smart. They know how to work around things. They get ideas from other people. But starting from the beginning, charging all the devices in your room, talking about why it's important, creating situations at home where your kids want to be on the couch or around the table, or environments where they don't need digital devices, creating game nights, things like that. It's still exciting. They might resist it at first, but then they start having fun, invite their friends over to have a game night, and then they have fun with that, and none of them need technology then. So there's all these little tricks, but there's no perfect answer to say what age or what maturity is the right level. It's all about knowing your child, watching their behaviors and their moods, and doing it with them.
Yeah.
Doing it with them so you understand. Because I used to ask my oldest son, hey, I have to do some investigations on this new thing called, what was it called? Snapchat. How do I, he's like, oh, Mom, do you know that there's this secret, little way you can communicate? And I'm like, so I would use that. So then I'm like, I don't think he realizes that he's teaching me how to check up on him. So we have to be clever, and work around our kids. But the key there is just communicating, talking about it, trying so hard not to get mad or judge, because the second we get angry or judge, they're not going to talk to us anymore. And so that's going to be the hardest thing. Is no kid's perfect, no adult's perfect. When they make a mistake, say, hey, you made a mistake. Let's talk about it. How are you going to do it differently? It's not everything's the end of the world. And sometimes we unintentionally make something small into something really, really big, and then we break the line of our communication with our children. And I'm guilty of it. I have to sometimes come back to my kids and say, you know what? I messed up right there. I got mad about something that wasn't that big of a deal. It could become a big deal if we don't fix it. But I'm sorry. Let's talk about it again. Let's start over. Let's, and being that example of none of us are perfect, but don't expect our kids to be perfect, right? And that goes with everything we've talked about today, whether it's academics, whether it's mental health, whether it's, diversity, whether it's cultural, whether it's just basic screen time and cell phone time.
Renae Ramsey, Coordinator for Leadership, Innovation, and Outreach for the Riverside County Office of Education.
And I appreciate you for inviting me and having me here today.
Thank you. You're listening to Education Insight. Earlier this week, we sent our assistant, Alyssa, out to Garrettson Elementary, a respected, award-winning school in Corona. There, we opened the mic and let teachers speak their hearts and their minds, and finally tell parents what they really need to know.
What I wish parents knew is how important it is to talk to their child daily. Talking and listening to a child does a lot of important things. It improves your bond with them. It encourages them to listen to you. It helps them to form relationships and build their own self-esteem. At the dinner table or before going to bed, you can ask your child simple questions to grow your bond. For example, tell me about the best part of your day. What was the hardest thing you had to do today? Did you find your classmates do anything funny? Or who did you play with today? And what did you play? These are all questions that you can ask your child, and you can learn so much about your child's day.
So one thing I would like parents to know is that the first 5 years of a child's development is crucial. In fact, there are many studies that state that there's a gap of over 1 million words between those who have been read to during those first 5 years and those who have not been read to. This gap could be a key in picking up reading skills more quickly and more easily. But it's essential for parents to realize that it's never too late. So I urge families to make a reading time for their household. Parents are children's primary teacher and should also read during that time. Modeling expected behaviors is crucial for the development of a child's brain.
What I want parents to understand is one of the most important ways a parent can encourage a child's learning is by demonstrating the value of education. Make learning a priority, add structure to your day, and eliminate distractions for your child to focus on schoolwork. If they know you care about their success, your child will be more likely to succeed.
I want my amazing parents to know that I am a professional, kind, understanding, fair, and most of all, a loving teacher. We have the best interest of your child in mind. I want to make sure that they are all safe, loved, and thriving. What I also want parents to know is that we are on the same dynamic team. I want so badly for your child to flourish and be ecstatic about life. Therefore, their happiness is a very important goal for me.
What I want parents to understand is that not all students are at grade level when it comes to reading. Just because your child's a third grade student does not mean that they should be reading a third grade book. It benefits your child when the parent or the child reads or listens to a book at their reading level, not their grade level. When finding a book at the library or purchasing a book for your child, please get a book at their reading level.
One thing I would like for parents to know is that parents and teachers in the whole school community are powerful partners, and that powerful partnership supports children both academically and socially. Also, teachers gain a different type of perspective in the school setting about kids' development, such as relationships and strengths and weaknesses and even their personalities. So parents and teachers sharing the information with each other, working together and joining forces will help students flourish and develop both academically and emotionally.
What I want parents to know is that education does not stop inside the classroom walls. There's so much learning that can take place outside in the real world. Parents, you can take your kids to the museum or outdoor places such as the beach or hiking trails, the fire station. Try to find things that your students are going to learn about or that they are learning about in their current school year.
Last but not least, I want you to know that your family's encouragement is priceless. And I think it's like gas in your car. Without it, it hinders your child from moving forward. For instance, your warm hugs, contagious laughs, sincere compliments, and precious time. It really means a great deal to them, and it's a pivotal key to their success. So continue to say, keep going, you could do it. That will definitely help them. I want to thank you for all you do, parents, and you are raising such amazing leaders for the future.
Thanks again to all of the great teachers from Garrettson Elementary in Corona, California. On the next Education Insight, we take a look at the value of a college education today and how education leaders are working to bring those with some higher education back to earn higher degrees. Be sure and join us for that. I'm Lacey Kendall.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor, and our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
Alyssa Silva is our production assistant, and Lacey Kendall is your host.
Support is provided by Growing Inland Achievement, working together for inland education and economic success.
And by College Futures Foundation.
Do you have questions or suggestions for the future topics we should be covering?
Write to us at educationinsight.org.
Join us again next time for
Education Insight.